And we're back. It's another Friday. It's another Goonerverse podcast. We're having a giggle. We're having a giggle because we were catching up on the stories and the comments for comments of the week. Not comments of the week, but stories of the week, whatever it is. For some of you.
Okay.
And look, sorry to ruin it early for listeners. And also, yes, I am holding a mic. I'm not at my usual set, so apologies for that. Apologies in advance that we're not going to read the story. It's so outrageous. But all I can tell you is, if you go to the latest Goonerverse podcast, scroll down to about 4 or 5 days ago, you'll know when you see it. You'll know when you see it. Anyway, how are you, Sheroy?
Yeah, I'm really trying to hold it down. By the way, for anyone that reads it, this isn't us condoning that behavior. We're not even saying it's a normal story. It's just the most unexpected thing to read in the YouTube comments, and it absolutely sent us before we started recording. But yeah, bro, thank you for asking. I'm very well. How are you?
Well, we may as well say so it is from Twerk for Work, and which is an objectively hilarious name as it is. Like, if this is a true story, we're actually quite concerned. But if you just fancy putting together some very funny words in which we had no idea what direction it was going to go in, you've absolutely, you've delivered on that. I feel it's too inappropriate for us to read on a sponsored piece of content, which is what I'm telling you all about NordVPN.
Okay. Nice segue. Well done.
Love the transition. People, what's there to tell you? You know what NordVPN is. They're a virtual private network. They're absolutely brilliant. You can open a world of content by surfing the web from anywhere else in the world. That is the beauty of NordVPN. What does that allow you to do? Open a world of content. You can watch things that would normally be accessible in other areas, other regions, other countries. You can access them wherever you are, or when you're away, you can access the content you love here. That includes TV series, films, your streaming services, and sport. Because we know sometimes it's not the easiest thing in the world. And look, that's the obvious thing that people use VPNs for, and I love them, and Sheroy loves them. And we've told stories in previous podcasts about how NordVPN has helped us so much. But crucially, they also protect your data whilst traveling, using public Wi-Fi, things like that. That's no joke, people. I was on tour recently, saw someone get hacked, Instagram, nonsense being posted. This stuff is like actually quite, we joke and I'm here with a smile, but it's actually quite serious. One NordVPN account can be used on up to 10 devices, and it's all for the price of a cup of coffee. And to get the best discount of your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Goonerverse. The link will give you an extra 4 months on a 2-year plan. There's no risk with the 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the comments section below. And look, we have talked NordVPN up. This is a third time, but because we genuinely use it, and they're brilliant. Like, it's a really, really brilliant service for what I believe is a very affordable amount. You are opening such a massive world of content and protecting your data as well, and privacy on the internet. I think it's really important, sure.
Yeah, man. And for anyone that wants to question the credibility, I've said it before and I've said it again. Before I even knew that they were sponsoring this podcast, NordVPN had been on all of my devices for well over a year, right? So I'm not just one of those guys that plug stuff because they're being nice to the pod, although it's welcomed, and I would do that too, by the way. I don't want to scare anyone off, but this one is actually on all my devices and I rate it. So that's all I've got to say about it, because I know that people want to hear us talk about the week that Arsenal have had, bro.
Oh yeah, we're going to go into that. But this is actually quite important. Can I just say this, right? I'm not trying to sound bigger or better than I am in any way, shape, or form. I've turned down working with brands and people whose products I genuinely don't use because I don't, and I don't believe in it. I use this, you use this, it's brilliant. I strongly recommend. And if it's a case that you're not really sure, like we said, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee. There's a great deal there with nordvpn.com/thegooniverse. And you're helping us out too, because by helping us out, we can make more content. We can grow. We want to do more podcasts in person. We need the space to do that, the resources. So it's a win-win for everyone. And I really believe you're going to benefit massively from it. So like I said, we'll not be telling you about it if we didn't genuinely use the product. And I think for those who follow the channel, you know that this has not been a channel littered with sponsors and brand deals and things like that. Far from it. It's the ones we really believe in, and NordVPN's absolutely part of that. So a big thanks to them. Sure, look, normally we would, and we've been criticised in the comments for taking too long to get into the football. Quite frankly, we're not sorry. But I'll be really honest. We're not going to change. And I say that because that's not what this podcast is about. It's meant to be a feel-good Friday piece of content, a bit of fun. But I don't think anything's making us feel better than our results right now. Yes, the stories are great, and I'll tell you all to go look at, the ones in the previous pod. Big thanks to Adam, who sent in another teacher story too. But we've got about 54 minutes to cover Tottenham, Bayern, and the upcoming Chelsea game. Take your pick. Where do you want to start? Broader question, micro, macro. Where do you want to go with this? Because we might be the best team in the world right now. We might genuinely. I think we are.
I'm going to tell you where I want to start.
Go on.
I want to meet this guy, and I'm going to put him to the test, yeah? Because I want to know if this was a one-off or not. The comments last week. Johnny D, 1790, 5 days ago. Don't worry, we'll win, easily. A spanking of Spurs has been due for years. 4-1. Who predicted a 4-1 apart from this bloke? I don't know anyone that went 4-1.
No.
So, Johnny D, here's my
Aaron Ben
test.
went 3-0.
Yeah, okay, 3-goal margin. 3-goal margin some people did, but 4-1? But I want to put you to the test. Big man, before the Chelsea game, I want your prediction in these comments, and I'm going to check. Yeah, if you get it right, I might have to holler at you in the DMs and see what else you can predict, my man, because you could probably change lives if this is really your gift. But yeah, where to start? Look, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm not on YouTube as much as you, right? So a lot of the people that watch this probably know what you think about Tottenham and may not know as much of what you think about Bayern. But for me, it is very difficult to sort of skirt over that Tottenham game because this time last week, bro, we were sat here and you'll remember we were discussing, but Tottenham, North London derby, form might go out the window. We went through their predicted 11 and said, but their away form isn't bad. Is Erdegaard going to be fit? Is Madueke going to be back? Is Nelly going to be fit? We don't know what Gyökeres is saying. There was an element of, I'm not entirely sure how this looks, but now every single content creator, every single mainstream media outlet, I haven't seen one person that has not released a video, whether it's a United fan, a Chelsea fan, a Liverpool fan, saying Arsenal are the real deal. Arsenal are the best team in Europe. Arsenal are the best team in the world. I apologize. Giving Mikel Arteta his flowers. It's all suddenly happening. Now you can sit there and question the motivation behind it, whether it's because they know that Arsenal fans click, whether it's because they want to apply the pressure, whatever. But your question was, are we the best in the world? We're undeniably one of them. And that in and of itself speaks volumes, right? One of the reasons I'm reluctant to say where we are the best in the world, right, conclusively, bro, last night's Champions League ties, or 2 nights ago, for anyone that's watching this the day that it comes out, there was a lot of quality on display. Like, I'm looking at Kylian scoring 4. I'm looking at some of the contributions from the players around him in terms of Vinicius. Even, I know we beat Bayern, but this was a one-off group game. They showed high quality throughout that game, right? And that when they get players like Musiala back,
first half they looked good.
Absolutely. And I thought, although we'll no doubt touch on it, even though Barcelona's defending was something that I do want to speak about, Chelsea looked fantastic going forward. There were so many mad results, and there are so many. Some of the goals that PSG scored, by the way, that Vitinha. I know that people were speaking about Vitinha last year. Some were speaking about him. The top quality is on display, right? So there is some fantastic football. But in answer to your question, one of the reasons why I think we may well be the best in the world right now, all of those teams that I mentioned, a lot of them are either incredible going forward or they're incredible defensively, but there aren't that many that have both. And I think right now we're the only ones that have both, week in, week out, in every bloody competition that we play in.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. Isn't there something so nice about... I don't know how to explain it. When we were in the Europa League, but even the Champions League, kind of getting out the groups, going out round of 16, when that was happening for us, I always used to feel like we were just playing our part in a wider competition. We're just there. No one expects us to win it. We're not going to win it. We're going to play our part. We'll lose to someone better. And then things will kind of come alive later. To be a part of the Champions League in the last few years, in a way in which I feel like we are legitimately competitive, we're a genuine threat to anyone. When you look at our exits or our defeats, last year 1-0 at Inter Milan. I thought we played well that second half. To be fair, don't think we deserved to lose that game. PSG, I think we were value for. I know it was 3-1 aggregate. I thought we were value for a level scoreline at least, though they were the better team in Europe, and I agree with that, and they're rightful winners. Bayern Munich, I don't think there was anything in it when they knocked us out of the quarters in 23-24. Like, that's what I mean. It's fine margins, but we have been supremely competitive in Europe. In 2025 alone, we've gone to PSV and won 7-1. Actually, let's go back. In the last 13 months, so just over a year, we've hosted PSG, beat them 2-0 in the year that they went and won that competition. We went to PSV and scored 7. I think that's the first time it's ever been done in Champions League history away or something like that. I can't remember. We've gone and destroyed Real Madrid 5-1 on aggregate. We've given, I think, PSG a good two-legged tie, though they were sort of leading from the 4th minute, and I'll grant you that. We've smashed Atletico Madrid 4-0, and now we've smashed Bayern Munich. And I mean smashed, because that second half, we were absolutely scintillating and should have 3-1 flattered them, I thought. This isn't the Arsenal I know in Europe. We're normally just there to play a part. We're normally just there, you go to a lot of weddings. We're normally just there I don't know, with filler, keep everything running, make sure, what do they call, we're just there to keep the event going, do your bit, make sure everyone's having a good time. It's not about you. But this is about us. People are looking at Arsenal right now across Europe, not just in the Premier League.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen overnight. I think in order to really, really appreciate where we are now, it is very important to look at where we've been, right? And I'm not just talking about the state of the squad when Mikel Arteta inherited it, how inexperienced Mikel Arteta himself was, the disconnect between the fans and the club. I'm talking about that incremental shift towards meeting the intention and the mission statement that he delivered as soon as he came. And regardless of what people want to poke fun at, we have done that year upon year upon year. Whether you're looking at in the league, you're looking at 8-8-5-2-2-2, whether you're looking at progressing that little bit further in the Champions League, whether you're looking at the way in which we've exited the Champions League, whether you're looking at the way in which we're performing in the group, whether you're looking at the squad depth as a whole, absolutely everything, even the quality of the blood clot tifos, James, everything is just going bang, 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 bang in the right way. And that, I know it's cliche, and I know a lot of people say, look, slow and steady wins the race, and there is a process, and people hate hearing it. But mate, I would much rather see something going in the right direction and put up with the things that I don't quite like, but then know that we're probably going to get there, as opposed to chop and change all the time. And now I'm looking at us. When the games that you mentioned, when we had Bayern Munich and we went out a couple of years ago, let's be honest, even though we were a very good team and we looked a good team, and I think at that point, we were negotiating a Premier League challenge as well. Had we gone through, it still would have been considered a bit of an upset. I'm not saying it would have been a whoa, but it would have been a bit. Bayern were the favourites in that tie. You look at the form that PSG were in when they took us out. I believe they had just taken Liverpool out. That, again, I think if we had done it, people would have, maybe not because of the Real Madrid result, but that might be the differential that year. But I still think people would have gone, wasn't quite expecting that. Whereas this year, I think people are actually just looking at us at face value with no bias and saying, no, we actually expect you to beat these teams now. Last night did not feel like an upset. It didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like we were good value. And throughout all the Wenger years, I mean, you'll probably remember this at the latter years, and certainly even early Arteta in certain European competitions. One thing that I always noticed is very often we would have home tie first, away tie later. We'd want to make the home advantage count. We wouldn't quite do it. It might be a draw, or we might be one behind, and we'd be going into a second leg going, we didn't quite do it at home, but with a little bit of luck, we could probably do it away, and we get turfed out. Whereas now, when these guys are coming to our gaff, I know it's not the knockout stages yet, but as you said, it's 4 past Atleti. It's smoking Bayern Munich and wrapping ourselves around them like a boa constrictor and choking them out, to the extent that Vinny Company is storming off the pitch and storming into that dressing room. The CBS staff that were behind said, I have not seen him come off the pitch that angry. That was his first loss of the season that he had to eat. So this isn't hyperbole. This is genuinely just analysing what we're seeing and how good Arsenal are. And let me be clear, I'd be saying exactly the same about Man City if this was them doing it. I'd be saying exactly the same about Liverpool if this was them doing it. I'd be saying the same about anyone if this was them doing it. Because I'm not saying it because I'm an Arsenal fan. But one thing Vinny said, I'll shut up after this. One thing Vinny said
Keep going.
in his post-match, in his post-match. And I don't think he said it in a snide way. I think he said it because he's got that mentality. He actually said, I don't think Mikel will mind me saying this, because he was asked the best in the world question. He said, nobody wants to be the best in the world in November. We all want to be there in May. And crucially, we can keep having these conversations. The question is, are we going to do it? But my belief right now is sky high.
Yeah. So I'm actually really glad you brought that up, because I also want to talk about Joshua Kimmich's comments. Did you see them, the quotes?
Oh,
I love
salty
the boiling.
Bro. What a salty bro.
Boiling piss all over the place. It's fucking brilliant. Okay, so on Company, like you said, it didn't seem like a jab or anything. It was him kind of using his experience and explaining his point, and I get that. But do you think there are certain like football cliches? Another one I've heard recently is Guardiola coming back from the international break going, "The season starts now," and I'm like, Gary Neville said, Arsenal need to play like they're in the run-in from the start. Pep Guardiola says the season starts now. Other pundits tell you it's really in February, March that it gets going. It's just like, how about every game counts? Like, that's why it's a league. Like, do you know what I mean? I can get that for the Champions League. I can understand why the format of the Champions League means you kind of do have one or two dead rubbers, and there is a little bit of room for error, and you really want to get going in the knockouts, and that maybe is what Vincent Kompany is referring to there. But kind of the idea that, like, well, you want to be the best team in May, not necessarily now. I'm like, okay, but what if we what if we continue to be? What if actually we get better when Gabriel, Ødegaard, Gyökeres, Havertz, Madueke, Martinelli are all fit? Oh, look, two of them are back, and they came on and dunked on Bayern Munich at the end there. Like, I just, every great side I've known has started fast. And I know there's those who got, of course, Man City typically got better after January, and then they went and won the treble. I'm not saying, like, you can win the league in a multitude of ways. Teams have won the league with 83 points. Some have won it with 97. Some have lost it with 96. Like, there's no one way. There's no right way or wrong way. Arsenal started brilliantly. They play what Alex from the Different Knocks called murder ball, which I love. I think it's a play on what Bielsa used to do. But they built a squad to be able to maintain that level. Now, we might slow down. It might catch up with us. Maybe. I don't know. But this kind of idea, like, well, I know you're good now, but it's like, well, why aren't you good now? Do you know what I mean? Like, what Man City, why have you lost back-to-back games? Bayern, why could you not handle us at the Emirates? Like, what? Like, these are the questions. I'd rather be asking those questions rather than Arsenal, why are you so good now? Like, I just find that strange.
Yeah, and the season starts now comment comes from a place of relative privilege, because can you imagine if Arsenal were knocking about in 7th and then we said, oh, but the season starts now? Where's your season going to end?
A year ago, we were 7 points behind Liverpool, and we said it was done. We said the season's finished now, not starting.
And case in point is, for me, 2 years ago, if you look at the second half of the season, we were the best team in the country by a mile. We were scoring 4s, 5s, 6s. We only had the one slip up against Villa. But because the season only started then, it still wasn't enough, because there was another team that had been doing it throughout and had the incredible second half. So that's the reason why the season that's why the season can't start now. And I use Pep Guardiola's team as the example of why it can't start now for a reason, right? He's the guy that said it. And the way that his team performed that year and the way that we performed would fly in the face of that comment. And you're right, it is a footballing cliche. I think it's something that's used particularly because we have, over the last 3 years, come second. I don't necessarily think it's something that would be said as readily if there wasn't this sort of cloud over us that we've not quite been able to get over the line. But I have to say that the reason I'm happy to even entertain this best in the world comment is because of that incremental progress that we were discussing. But also not just the consistency that we've showed throughout the course of this season, but the consistency in adversity. As you said, this has not been the ideal start to the season. We looked at that first set of about 8 or 9 games in the Premier League, and we said, in actual fact, we've got some horrible, horrible fixtures in there. We had to go to Anfield, and in fact, we lost. But we had to show character at St. James's Park. We had to go to Old Trafford. We had all of those games, but we came through it. Again, why the season can't start now, right? It had to start then. But we've come through that patch, and then we're looking at a week like this where there are still fitness concerns. Look, a North London derby is a North London derby, and you take a win, but that was, I think you said it too, I think that was the most one-sided dominant performance I've seen in a North London derby for a very, very long time. In fact, I can't remember one that was that dominant. And then you do have, well, yeah, and then you have the undefeated Bayern, who've outscored absolutely everyone in the world at this stage of the season, and they didn't really look like scoring against us either. So I'm looking at us defensively. I'm looking at us going forward. I'm looking at what we haven't had to offer, but what is about to come back that we might be able to offer. I'm looking at the high caliber players that we're not just going to have to leave on the bench, James. We're going to have to leave out of the matchday squad because there isn't enough room if they're all fit. We're in an obscene position, and I liken it to that Pep team, the team that went and won the threes, the fours. I mean, we've had this conversation so many times, but they had the luxury at times of leaving De Bruyne on the bench, leaving a peak Sterling on the bench, leaving a Mahrez on the bench. They could do that. I'm not saying that our players are currently at the level that Riyad Mahrez was, for example, or KDB, but I am saying we've got immense quality on the bench to the extent that we don't really need to worry about which one's going to be in for the vast majority of games. And that is why we're all, as Arsenal fans, I think, sitting here with the level of conviction that we are. And crucially, I think that rival fans are starting to come to terms with the fact that it's probably going to happen.
Yeah, agreed. It's interesting, as we're dissecting all that, don't get my points confused, people. We beat PSG 2-0, and then they added Kvaratskhelia, Enrique tweaked a few things, and they became the best team in Europe. So the season can start at a later point. I actually did separate the Champions League from the Premier League. I do think because of the nature of that competition, you can get going a little bit later and still win it and be the best team. But this idea that we should worry about our style of play, or we should worry or be criticised for, maybe we've started too quickly. I don't know. Or it just feels like seeds of doubt being planted in heads. Arsenal, they keep doing what they're doing, will win competitions, trophies this year if they continue doing what they're doing. I think even with a drop-off, we're still capable of lifting silverware. But we went for the depth of squad we went for this summer to be able to maintain those levels. So Madueke could come on, Martinelli on the left comes on against Bayern, and the levels don't drop from Trossard and Saka, who've been brilliant. Now, I mentioned frustrating Joshua Kimmich, and here's what he had to say. And I will say, by the way, I'm reading a quote, right? The tone can always be different when you hear it. But here's what he said, the full quote, because I've seen only some doing the rounds. He said, I think PSG was the toughest game, especially the way they play football. Arsenal are completely different. They rely on set pieces. They love to play long balls. They love to fight for the second balls. It was a completely different game. Against PSG, it was more of a football game. Today, it was not so much about football. It was about game management. It was more about the duels. Arsenal did this really well tonight. Their win was well-deserved, but we have to learn from this game. Now, I want to give my thoughts really quickly on this. Firstly, shout out to all the Arsenal fans who have made the point that Bayern Munich played more long balls in the game than Arsenal. Secondly, if this was a really scrappy game in which we made it physical and basically no one had chances, I actually think there'd be some merit to look like they basically had to do everything but really play the game to limit us to a 0-0. All right, it would annoy me, but fine. What annoys me is Bayern Munich were drastically outplayed on and off the ball. They couldn't get near our goal, even in the first half when I credited them for playing some lovely football. In the second half, they couldn't live with our physicality. They couldn't live with the interchanging. The second goal is brilliant. It's Eze, our number 10, pulling wide, Calafiori underlapping, whipping it to the back post. That's like a vintage Pep Guardiola goal, something Kimmich would have been a part of under that manager himself. So, and then the third's a brilliant counter-attack. Only the first was set piece. We didn't rely on set pieces. Bayern were just absolutely shit at defending them. So we kept sticking it on them time and time and time again, and they had no answer. Sorry that you want to be a top team that doesn't want to address set pieces. Oh no. Because others in the Premier League are trying to address that and are trying to make it harder for us, or at least are trying to use it as a weapon against us, like Sunderland. So Sunderland were more prepared on set pieces than Bayern Munich were. Right? I appreciate that he has come in and gone, Arsenal did this really, did this well. They deserve their win. We have to learn. Cool. But don't tell me that the game you won against PSG was a harder game than the game you lost quite convincingly at the Emirates. It's nonsense. And it goes back to what Rodri said a few years ago, that they didn't win the 0-0. We didn't want to play football. We weren't there to play. I've watched back the highlights. Arsenal had chances in that game. They had way more chances than Man City, who went 5-5-0 at the Emirates against us only 2-3 months ago with a 1-0 lead. With a 1-0 lead, right? So they've shown they could even score on the day. Not against treble winners, not against title winners, nothing. Against Arsenal, who they always belittle for the football we played, they went 5-5-0 to try hold us out. So, I'm not going to lie, it does get to me a little bit when I read these comments. Part of me goes, inject it. This is hilarious. Look at them. And someone else has made the point that it's better to be this than be patronised when we lose 3-0 and people tell us, they're going to be a great team. They're doing great things, blah, blah, blah. So I prefer this. But I just think these footballers, and Arne Slot's been doing it with Liverpool too, this people in the game who have this snobbery about the way it should be played, I quite frankly can do one for me. Like I just think it is such. I think it's such a sore loser way of looking at the sport, in my opinion. And I just think like it's just what you're saying publicly, because behind the scenes, I know they're all going, right, how do we deal with this better next time? Sorry for that really long rant. I do apologize, people. But I just had to get that off my chest. It just, especially when we're actually playing good football anyway, and you talk about long balls and your team attempted more, I just think like, maybe that's what it's designed to do. Maybe it's designed to rattle me and to rattle fans and rattle the club. Maybe that's what it's designed to do. But I'll still say it's idiotic comments either way.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you went through the caliber of goal that we scored and how they weren't all via long balls or set pieces. But I mean, look at the chances that we didn't take. The little Eze nutmeg that goes to Marino, and then Marino gives it back to him and he doesn't take that. You know, I mean, was Rice's blistering run throughout the entirety of their half, cutting their team up like a birthday cake, where he probably could. I mean, if it weren't for Manuel Neuer, that's a goal. You know, and there are loads that I could go through, right? And that was the thing, is there are so many facets to our game. People very often will try and focus upon the one that frustrates them most. And when you are the opponent who on the night proved that you were incapable of dealing with one particular facet, utterly incapable, to the extent that Marino probably could have had a hat-trick aerially. Of course it's going to sting you. But when Floyd Mayweather went unbeaten throughout his career, all people used to say is, yeah, but he doesn't come to box. But Floyd Mayweather says, yeah, but I win because I don't get hit. And he retires with a better record than some of the greats. And he goes down as one of the greats. When Arsene Wenger always used to point to the style of football that we used to play, and when loads of people used to say, look at these technicians, man, look at Rosicki and look at Kleb and look at all of them. Did we win the major European honours by doing that? No.
And did anyone give us any grace for it?
Of course not. Of course not. And I mean, you looked at the grace that Ange Postecoglou got in that first season at Tottenham, but now look at the way in which he's spoken about. You look at the grace that people like Bielsa got when they were at Leeds, but look how his tenure ended. I don't need their grace because I've seen this movie before and I know how it ends. Whereas what I'm seeing with Mikel Arteta and this Arsenal club, I have not seen before as an Arsenal fan with us. And even though I think I know how the movie ends, James, I want to see how this movie ends, you know? So let them talk.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You mentioned, as a boxing reference, Novak Djokovic. When people, debate like the greatest of all time in tennis, and I'm a huge Federer fan, like what do I pull on if I'm trying to defend Federer? I go, yeah, but he makes you want to watch the game and no one struck a ball like him or whatever. Nick Kyrgios and others have said it. All right, who's sitting there with the most Grand Slams? And the accolades to show, like, and even then, because there was maybe someone else who did it more elegantly, you're looked at as maybe not being elegant, if that makes sense. Because Liverpool are a bit more attacking. Because PSG play a type of football or Barcelona do. Suddenly Arsenal don't play good football because we don't play it at that level or in that way. But I said in a tweet, I think we're a brilliantly entertaining team to watch. And this set piece thing, yeah, I find it strange. I want to shout out Liaz, one of my favorite YouTubers at the moment. He said he went to the Emirates and he said, when we got a corner, I know this is true because I saw it at Man United last season. I was at the Spurs game on the weekend. I saw it too. When we get a set piece, the Emirates lights up, the volume goes up. That is, I'm sorry, I find that entertaining. I think that's hilarious. Imagine being so skilled at a facet of the game that a very generic ball out of touch can generate that level of noise and excitement. Like, I find that entertaining. I find when Arsenal are whipping in ball after ball and the opposition are scrambling to deal with it, because for that split second you think this could end up in the back of the net. I find that entertaining. Sean Dyche once said, people aren't entertained by the ball just being moved side to side to side. They're entertained by a ball up to the big man up front who nods it down and then you smash it into the roof of the net on the follow up. And it's like, he's not wrong. It's ugly if it doesn't work, but when you get it right, it's scintillating. It's brilliant. So, yeah, thought it was worth talking about that.
And you could hear it. You could hear it last night. The first 20 odd minutes, it was an absolute jostle, right? And there were two high level teams trying to get the measure of each other. And I think I remember this correctly because I remember watching it thinking that the game's changed before the first goal went in. Zubimendi, I don't know what he's doing up there, but he shows incredible tenacity to get the corner that ultimately leads to the goal from memory. But when that ball went out, you heard it. You heard the Emirates suddenly go, okay, maybe this is how we can turn the tide of the game. Maybe this is how the balance shifts ever so slightly.
You're right.
And that brought the goal and that opened it up. And from that moment on, even though I know they scored, we continued to grow into the game. And I'm not entirely sure how that half pans out had we not got that corner, right? And then we go on to do what we do from open play too, crucially.
So that's a fascinating point because we were struggling to get close to Bayern. We were man-for-man marking. We were chasing them all over the pitch. We're going to move on to Chelsea in a sec. But that's a really good point. Like, we were actually kind of struggling to get control of the game. I thought we were matching them. I thought we did a lot of good stuff. But once we got the set piece, it was like, okay, now we can show you something. Again, using analogies in other sport, it's like you've been totally outplayed by Federer on his game, and then suddenly it's your serve. And actually you realize that you're a bloody big server and you might get a couple aces here. Like, it's something like that for Arsenal. It's a free hit. It's right, we can just whip this into a dangerous area, see what they're about. And they were shocking. As much as I've got so much praise for Bayern, by the way, they're getting a lot of praise, Bayern, for not really asking that much of David Raya. So that tells you how impressive they were on the eye, how classy they were moving the ball, and credit to them and Vincent Kompany. They made us work really, really hard. But they were shocking from set pieces. And Arsenal then figured them out on the press and then spent the whole second half camped in and around their penalty area because Bayern couldn't get out. And that just speaks to the genius of Mikel Arteta and this group of players. But yeah, I agree with everything you said there. I want to ask you though, I dropped a video on Goonerverse News, and Goonerverse News is a channel that is there to cover not just breaking news as it happens, but what are the talking points, what are people saying about this club, and what's my reaction to it. And the double is being thrown out a lot. Simon Jordan, I think, spoke about it on TalkSport. I know Coach Cam spoke about it. And it came up when I was on TalkSport a month ago, and I said, let's relax. But it came up again when I was there last night. And it's very hard. It's very hard to look at these people like dead in the eye and go, no, we can't win the double. Because we can. Like, I don't think we will. There's too much randomness in football for me to think that ultimately it's going to all go our way. But we're absolutely capable of it. What's your take on it, Sheroy? And what your ceiling and expectation is for Arsenal this season? Like, what can we really do besides just winning one of them?
I want to link this back to some of Thierry's comments when he was speaking to Declan Rice last night for CBS. He asked Declan point blank, he said, look, I understand your whole long season, game by game, humility approach, but are you guys embracing the fact that you're favourites in every competition that you're in? And Thierry Henry said, I asked this because it's important. It's important when you go into an away game and you go into an away stadium for you to walk in with that air of, no, we are the best in this competition and you're about to find out. And when Thierry Henry says something like that, more often than not, you listen. I'm not suggesting that I always agree with everything he says, but when it comes to that sort of stuff, he's been there, he's done it, he knows what it's about. And whether the players feel that way or not, I guess we'll never know. By the way, what I would have given for an all or nothing this season, by the way, I would have loved to have known what the prep for that Tottenham game was like, what the atmosphere in the dressing room was like afterwards, what the halftime talk was against Bayern. There's so much I would love to know, but I don't want to digress too much.
Yeah, agreed.
But so the players are one thing, but as fans, just look at what we're doing and look at what is yet to come. There's absolutely no reason why we should sort of shy away from the "can you do it" question. Now, the "will you do it" question is very different, because you then look at the amount of teams that have achieved far more than us, but still haven't been able to do that, for example. So just logically, when you're looking at history, the probabilities are slightly lower, but there's absolutely nothing precluding us from being able to do it right now. If I look at what I think you need to win a double, crucially, I think you need squad depth, and not just squad depth in terms of numbers. I think you need squad depth in terms of quality and the ability to turn a game on its head when you come off the bench. What did Calafiori? What did Martinelli? What did Madueke? What did they do when they came on last night? And how often have we said that about ourselves? We have that, and that would indicate that we can not only go the distance in the micro in game, but we can go the distance in the macro in season and across a number of competitions. What else do you need? You need a team that's been there before and seen and felt what it feels like to not get over the line. We've done that too. And I'm not just talking about the emotional and the psychological side there. I'm talking about the actual in-game stuff. Where you look at the margins and you go, that's why we didn't win. That's why we didn't get through against that elite team. That's why we didn't get from the semi-final to the final. And that's how we're going to do it next time. You need that's like scorn, right? What else do you need? In my opinion, relentless momentum. You need to make sure that winning breeds winning breeds winning, which is why I didn't really like I'm not too asked if we lose the Bayern game chat, because in the same way that one win can turn into two, can turn into three, one loss can turn into a draw. And then it can, momentum is very, very important. And you can only build that momentum with that relentless nature if you have a squad the way in which we do. I've got two other things that come to mind. You also, in my opinion, I don't think you're going to win the double if it's your sort of first season with a relatively new, fresh squad or a relatively new, fresh manager. I think you do need that level of cohesion, understanding, chemistry, know-how, that level of companionship and brotherhood where you really go into the fucking trenches for your team. And our boys have that, man. Our boys absolutely
have that.
And that's something that can get you over the line too. And the last thing is you need a manager that knows his team inside out and has also been there and felt that scorn historically. Right. And we have that now. This manager knows not just our players in terms of their footballing capability, not just what their best position is or positions are. He knows them as boys. He knows them as men. He knows their families. He knows them better than I think most managers know a lot of their players. Right. So if you look at that in a formulaic way, can we? Yes.
Yeah. I think you've broken it down brilliantly there. And, the Man City side that won the treble is like Pep Guardiola's like maybe third best team at Man City, maybe. I think 17-18 and 18-19 were arguably better teams. I mean, I enjoyed watching them more. David Silva and De Bruyne with Fernandinho behind. Then Rodri slowly starts to come in. Bernardo Silva, Aguero up front. That was a team, the treble-winning side, with the sort of 6 foot fullbacks that were typically centre backs, Erling Haaland scoring machine up front. That was a team that was maybe more primed and efficient for the margins to go their way. But, his other teams played where the margins were so in their favour anyway, if that makes sense. Like the data was so in their favour, they're always going to win more games. But, it's hard to explain. There's kind of compromise in anything in football. Like going for the double would take something out of you. Going the distance in one competition, like to a degree, there's momentum, but I don't really know what I'm trying to say. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a randomness in football. You're not just, we're playing as the best team, therefore we're going to win everything. Because that wasn't the case. Like Liverpool won the Champions League the year Pep Guardiola beat them by a point to the title. And then they went out of the quarters of the round of 16 of the Champions League, the year they won the Premier League and were Champions League champions. It's just, I think it's quite random sometimes. And by random, I mean, look at that Richarlison goal. They were awful. They didn't get anywhere near our goal, but a moment can happen. And Bayern didn't really ask any questions, but look at that quality. So, no, I don't think we'll win the double. But I think we're absolutely capable of it. There's too much randomness in football for me to think that's all going to ultimately go our way.
Oh no, and look, I mean, as much as I would love it to, I don't really need it to right now. Give me the Premier League, and I'm a happy man. You know, all this talk about a lot of people saying, "Oh well, why aren't you placing these demands on your club? Should he not be winning the Champions League in his sixth season or whatever it is?" I'm like, yeah, mate. I mean, great. You know, you can sit here and be the standards merchant if you want, but it's been quite painful. Not just finishing second 3 times, but also all the dross that we had to witness before Arteta for a while, and some of it in Arteta's early tenure. So the fact that we're doing what we're doing in the Premier League now, and we're by far the favourites, the notion that we're even one of the favourites, if not the favourite in the Champions League, for me right now is fantastic. Now, my tone changes if we get to the semi-final. Or you know, when it gets to that stage, and I'm kind of like, okay. Now, when it's in touching distance and it's in our sights and we've done the hard work to get there, then suddenly I go, okay, maybe it would be a bit of a problem if you let this slip in some sort of malfunction, and if you didn't do yourself justice on the pitch, if you left, you know, that sort of thing. But you're right, the randomness is insane. I mean, look at what with Di Matteo's Chelsea, for example. Where did they finish in the league when they won the champion? I mean, there are so many examples of that, and I'm acutely aware of that. But the question was, can, and the answer is yes.
It was Pochettino's worst version of his Tottenham team that got to the Champions League final. They weren't good that year. It was the years before that they looked like they might surprise the Premier League title win there. So yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was worth discussing that because those have kind of been the topics of conversation this week. And listen, it's fun talking about Arsenal this way. I've never been able to do it. So that feels good in itself. Good. Also, I wanted to quickly ask you, it slightly escaped my mind. Yeah, so I think we'll just move on to Chelsea. Yeah, we'll move on to Chelsea. Sorry, poor hosting there on a podcast front, but we're very real people. We're not even going to cut that out. We're just going to leave it all in. You can see exactly how the pod works. So Chelsea on the weekend, you know, I was asked, you know, it's another big test for Arsenal. You know, if they pass this test. And my reply was, yeah, but how many tests do we have to pass? Like, basically more than our rivals in the Premier League. But we, like, one at Old Trafford, one at Newcastle, beat Atletico, beat Bayern, smash Tottenham. You know, if Arsenal don't win this game, it doesn't drastically change how I feel about this team. It would just be really disappointing. It may be a little bit more nervous. It'd be a real shame. But I'm at the point where I know where I believe this team is. How are you feeling about the game? And then I want to ask you about Rice and Caicedo in a sec, because Rice was unbelievable against Bayern as well. But how are you feeling for the game in general?
Every single Arsenal game that we go into now, not only do I think we're going to win, but I'm excited to watch it. And that again flies in the face of all those people that say we don't play a particular brand of football, because whatever brand we're playing, mate, I'm telling you, I'm enthralled by it. Whether it's tactical battles, whether it's little technical displays from Marino with a little back heel around the corner or a little nutmeg from Eze, whether it is a blistering set piece, whatever it is, I'm excited by it. And I'm confident for the Chelsea game, and I do think we're going to win that game. And I agree with you. Look, there are certain games where we've had that conversation and the catastrophizing about a loss, I think, would have been warranted. So, for example, the Newcastle game. If we did lose that Newcastle game, I don't think that was sort of hyperbolic analysis. And I really do think that the reason the win felt the way it did that day wasn't just the late goal. It was because we knew what it meant. And I do think that...
Sorry, there's a spider running around and I'm absolutely bricking it. Carry on.
Do you not kill them?
No. I'm watching it.
Because you're too scared to, or you feel bad to?
Both. Right, I'm just going to stand very Keep making your point. I'm going to try and show you it. Carry on.
Hold on. What was my point? What was I talking about? Chelsea, right? Yeah.
When we thought we might lose to Newcastle.
Yeah. Well, where is he? Have you named him?
No. Can you see him?
Yeah, he's a little pain in the arse. We'll call him Kimmich. That's his name. That's his name. Little Kimmich. Yeah, but I also think that we are able to sit here and say, well, that it's not going to change what we think about the Premier League, because of the fact that, in all honesty, we've seen what's happened with Liverpool. when City said, or when the manager said the season starts now, they went and lost. And regardless of how close Chelsea are to us, no one had them in a title race at the start of the season. I don't really think even Chelsea fans have themselves in a title race now, in all honesty. I think they understand that they have the propensity to maybe be second because of what's happening around them, but I don't think they feel as though they've got the squad, the manager, or the minerals just yet to be able to do that. So look, if we lose, yeah, it'll be a pain in the arse. And I say that because I think we're better than them. I don't say that. I don't say that because of what would happen to the table. I just mean that we're now in a position, James, where if we turn up and we are at 85% of the 100% that we have to offer, we should be able to beat the vast majority of teams in the country. And I class Chelsea as one of those teams that this might sound condescending, this might sound naive. I do think that if we're around the 85% mark, we win that game. I think if we're at the 100% mark, it's a mauling. But that's where I am with it.
Do you know Chelsea, where I'll give them a lot of credit, because I was on the bandwagon a year or two ago of like, what are they doing as a club? Like, they're just spending money, they're hoarding talent. I don't get the vision. It moved again. Where the hell? He's so close to my chair. Is that a beer?
Yeah, but I mean, if you're not gonna dash it and you're not gonna kill it, like if you want to sit there and be all nice about it, then you're just gonna have to live in fear. I mean,
and like, where's he going?
They're harmless. They're harmless. He won't do anything.
But like, can he disappear into like
poor little Kimmich?
Oh, Josh, piss off. Anyway, right, I'm just not going to look unless he climbs up this chair.
You won't know. He's tiny. Carry on.
He's not. He's like. Anyway,
James.
I'd feel a lot better if I knew that was big. Anyway, so. Friday content for you people.
That's it, bro.
No, I'll give Chelsea some real credit, right? In the sense that I was questioning the vision. I still think like not going for certain players because they're over 25, for example, is like mental to me. But Esteval, Cole Palmer, Caicedo, like they've got legitimate, real superstars there for the long term. Like real, like. Chelsea have an argument for the best midfield in the league. Now, I don't believe it is. I believe ours is better. But they've got a real argument for it. And they shouldn't really, when they're considered basically fourth to Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, going into every season. So, yeah, that's what I kind of worry about them. They can really hurt us. It brings us nicely onto the Rice and Caicedo debate, and then we can obviously pick our 11s for this game. This debate's been going on for ages, and I actually refused to talk about it until this game came around. So I looked at the calendar and went, okay, it's not that far away. We'll talk about it then. My take on it is this. I thought Rice spoke really well on this. He basically said he's a great player. I voted for him last season and whatever thing it was. But he's an out-and-out 6, whereas I'm a box-to-box 8. So I do think we play different roles. And I've always thought, yes, why are people missing this? I just think a better debate is Caicedo Zubimendi. Like, but I think Zubimendi's a brilliant player, but they're very different, but play the position, pretty much the same position. And that's a kind of really fascinating, slight clash of styles, but they've got a lot of similarities, but in a slightly different way. I think that's what people should be talking about. The Rice Caicedo debate, I think, is ridiculous for 2 reasons. One, exactly what Declan said. Very, very different players. One is a lung-busting, ball-carrying central midfielder who he's an all-round central midfielder. He's responsible for set pieces. He gets goals and assists. I'm not saying Caicedo doesn't. I know his numbers are quite good. But Caicedo is a build-up player. Run the game through me. We don't do that with Declan Rice. Declan Rice is like the world's greatest facilitator to the Zubimendis, the Erdegaards, all that. Other thing. What happened to needing to prove yourself at the highest level? And like, I won't take the Conference League and the Club World Cup. Like, sorry, I won't. Because Bukayo Saka had to do it in the Champions League before people gave him credit. Declan Rice won the Conference League, balled out for England across several competitions, and he wasn't given the credit until he came to Arsenal and did it at the Bernabeu. So Caicedo might be as good as him. Like I said, I think it's a ridiculous debate. I think they're a wonderful complement to one another. That's why I think Chelsea would have wanted Rice at one point. We wanted Caicedo at one point. But like, I thought Caicedo had to do it like at the Bernabeu or something, or in the semis or quarters of the Champions League for us to take him seriously. By the way, I think that's ridiculous narrative. But I'm just telling you what we always heard about our players. So I just think it's one of the more ridiculous debates that rears its head time and time and time again. Because people who go, I'd take Caicedo over Rice. I'm like, okay, but you don't need to. They play different positions. So I don't really get the conversation.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of having these conversations at the end of people's careers. When I can look back. What's Kimmich doing?
No, that I can't see him. This is terrifying.
I'm going to talk to our viewers.
Talk to our viewers.
Whilst you look,
shuffle
you look for Kimmich
to the other chair because I'm not convinced. You carry on.
Yeah, this is the sort of conversation I want to have at the end of a career, right? Because that's where you can not only look at what those players have won, but you can look at what role they played in their clubs winning those trophies, right? That's the first thing. It's not a conversation that I need to have right now.
He went up the wall. He climbs. So he climbs.
Of course he does. He's a spider, bruv. Of course he does. That's what they do.
Oh my God, he went up the wall. Oh my God.
Is this the room that you're planning on sleeping in, by the way?
No. Where is he? You can't even see him. Can you see him down there?
He's probably chilling, bro. Yeah, I can see him. He's tiny. You're ridiculous. You're a shambles. Sort yourself out. He's absolutely tiny.
Carry on. So at the end of their careers, you want to talk about Caicedo and Rice. I'm so sorry for people listening in. It's Friday content.
Yeah. What was I actually saying about
I'm sorry, I've been awful tonight. I know. I'm not on my set. I'm not on my best mic. I'm not on my best camera. I'm terrified of spiders. I haven't read a funny story. I know I've had a shocker. Go for it. Right, so at the end of their careers, you're saying that you want to look at the two of them. And that's when you can get
I want to look at the two of them, and I want to see how they've contributed to what their teams have won. But also, like, even if we're having this discussion right now, one, I don't understand why one has to be better than the other, particularly when you're looking at the reason Caicedo is looking better year upon year. It goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? When you're in a team and you have that chemistry year upon year, I mean, it's no coincidence that he's played with Enzo for a year more, or he played with Palmer for a year more, and he has a bit more quality around him now that Reece James comes in and Malo Gusto settles in. That level of chemistry obviously makes you look a bit better as well, because you're playing in a more cohesive unit and you can really shine. So that's why he's improving. But in the same way, Declan has not only done the same, but he obviously has the defensive ball-winning capability, but he has changed the course of games with his goal contributions too. I mean, we're talking about arguably the best set-piece delivery in the world. I'm not talking about just the UK now. I'm talking about in Europe. It's ridiculous. And that run yesterday exemplified it. I'm not suggesting that this isn't even me saying that Declan Rice is head and shoulders above, but my point is I don't really understand why we're having the conversation right now, because everything there is for Declan Rice to prove, he has already proven, aside from proving that he can be the man to lead us to a trophy. And that's why I say when it comes to that sort of conversation, like, on the Big Six, they do the all-time 11s or whatever. I quite like those conversations because they'll be, oh yeah, but he won this. Or when they do like the Streets Don't Forget, you can say, oh yeah, but you can't put him in there because he won PFA. That level of hindsight and that sort of retrospective analysis is fine. But right now, we have a horrible habit as football fans and as society for not just enjoying the privilege that we have before us and enjoying the moment. We get to see two top midfielders, albeit one not for our club, but we get to see them go head to head this weekend, right? Let's just enjoy it for what it is.
I couldn't agree more. And we have a habit in modern football conversation, and I do think a lot of this is driven by podcasts, by rage bait, by things like this. But like suddenly I see like analysis of like the way Messi dribbles, and it's like, and I saw a tweet, and I'm not trying to have a pop at this person. I don't know who they are, or I can't remember the full tweet. There's something along the lines of Messi was more of this kind of dribbler, not that kind of dribbler. And I'm like, look, you might be right. I'm not saying the analysis is wrong, but that's just never how I want to enjoy football. I'll never want to see a player like Lionel Messi and have to think about the things he gets wrong. And I just don't want to waste any more time other than, like, this is why I never made a video before it. other than, you know what, it's quite topical ahead of Arsenal versus Chelsea. Here are my thoughts on the Rice Caicedo debate. But basically, when it comes to it, I keep checking for Kimmich. When it comes to it, like, it's why I call it a stupid debate. I just don't really get. Let's wait. Now Caicedo's in the Champions League, and I think Chelsea will go far. And now that Chelsea are facing Arsenal on the weekend, you know, ahead of them being second, trying to close the gap, that'll be really interesting. By the way, back him to play well. I back him to have a great career. We wanted him for a reason. I wanted him at Arsenal for a reason. I think he's a baller. For any Chelsea fans watching this, you think we're hating on their guy and supporting our guy.
Oh.
It's not about that. It's just, I just think the conversation is just quite disingenuous. On it though, a couple of minutes ago, what would your 11 be? Like, I think if I can just chalk some moments off for you, like Calafiori will start left back because of the impact he had, and Miles just didn't have the impact we were hoping for him. Nketiah and Mosquera is the debate, and what do we do in the absence of Trossard as well? Because I don't think he'll be available. So what would you do for those two positions in particular?
I personally think that he brought Mosquera in because he intended on playing Nketiah in this game, and that's one reason. But the other one, I mean, Arteta alluded to it himself. He said we have to be careful because Piero came back very, very late from international duty. He had a very, very long trip, so he actually did well to play in the North London derby the way he did. But I do think he's the favoured defender, and I go back to what I said when I said that I wanted him to start in the Tottenham lineup. If you remember last week, it's because I think a lot of people look at him wrongly as this sort of squad defender that's only really good enough to be there if there's an injury, and he's a bit of a filler when he's not. He really is a first-rate defender when it comes to not just that, but also in terms of a partner for Saliba. I really do think that he's probably the closest thing to the caliber of Gabriel that we have, and for that reason, I think he will start. Now, the Trossard injury, obviously, it had to happen, right? Because we got Martinelli back, and we have this one in, one out rule this season, which is bloody annoying. But given the type of game that I think Chelsea will play, and given what I was saying about Martin Odegaard before he got injured and the way in which he was impacting games, I would personally like to see Odegaard reoccupy his position in the 10. And I think because of the fact that Eze is probably closer to the Trossard mould than a Martinelli would be, I'd like to see him on the left. But having said all of that, if he then goes and names Mosquera at centre-back, and if he goes and names Nelly on the left, and it's Eze in the 10, bro, I'm still looking at that lineup and saying we should be winning this game. That's the beauty of it. I'm now not looking at team selection and going, what's he gone and done here? This is really going to hamper us. I'm looking at all of these options. I'm excited to see what Noni has to offer now. There are so many of these options that, as I say, I'm on the edge of my seat when it's starting 11 time. And bro, bring on Sunday. What about you? What do you want?
Yeah, Nketiah. When I watched him against Spurs, he really surprised me because what I'd seen of Nketiah felt like someone who wanted to spring forward time and time again and had like a real lung-busting energy to do that. But what I saw in the derby was an incredibly composed, masterful centre-back performance, getting in front of his defender, being aggressive, good in the air. Like, it was a proper centre-backs display. So huge credit to him for that, first and foremost. And because of the dynamic, you were right to want what you wanted for the derby, and you got that. But I was sort of wondering, well, could you move Calafiori left centre back and Nketiah left? I never thought Arteta would do that, but I just wondered whether that was the better fit for the two. But watching them this season, Calafiori's been even more what I thought Nketiah would be, and Nketiah was at centre back for one game, albeit, and the Brighton game was what I thought Cala would be if we played there. The reality is they can probably both do both, but while you've got them in this rhythm, keep them where they are. And then on the left, I would go, you took the words out of my mouth, I'd go Eze on the left because I think he's the closest into Trossard, and you bring Odegaard back into the team. And I think we're going to need some control in this game against Chelsea. They could very easily get Santos, Reece James, Caicedo, Enzo, Palmer, whoever it is, if Palmer's fit. They've got another youngster as well. I don't know if Labia's fit. I don't think he is, but there's another youngster too. They could easily wrestle control of this game. Kukurea inverting. Suddenly they got more on the ball. We're struggling. So I think Odegaard could actually be big for this. We just don't know how sharp he is or how good he's going to look for obvious reasons. So, yes, Odegaard in the 10, Eze on the left. Marino up front, but I think this will be the last time I want to see it. if Gyökeres and Havertz are back. I think it's time to get
if
them back.
Gyökeres is fit enough to make that squad, would you start him?
No. I think we've done too much good work with Mourinho up front. And by the way, I didn't love Mourinho's performances in either game. I thought he did some good things in both games. But there were definitely moments where I went, if we had that running behind, something like that, if we could stretch the back four. So, yeah. So we agree on the 11.
Yes, we do, bro.
Right.
Yes, we do.
I went with a 1-1, I think, on loose cannons. What are you going to go with as a score prediction?
2-0 to us.
Okay. I hope you're right. That would cap off an unbelievable, the greatest week I've ever had as an Arsenal fan, I'll be honest. In terms of pure results and back-to-back would be special. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, everyone. This podcast's been a shambles, but that's what they're going to be on Fridays. And we hope you take it in the spirit in which it's intended. Remember, on a big shout out to NordVPN. You can support us by supporting them who are supporting us. It's a class feature. Download the app onto your phone. You can get it on your laptops too. You know what it is. Virtual private network, access a world of content, one NordVPN account can work on 10 devices for the price of a cup of coffee per month. And remember that to get the best discount, go to nordvpn.com/Goonerverse for 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. All the details are in the description below. A big thanks to them, not just for supporting us, but for being, an app, a tool we genuinely use in our day-to-day lives. Big thanks to Sheroy. And let's hope Arsenal keep it going. All right, we'll leave it there. Big thanks to Max as well. He works so hard in the background on all this. All right. Love to you all in a bit.